I'm ready. Great. Let me write continue. Okay.
You might wanna
Yes, that was a little technical break, and I'm sure you're all waiting to hear "Here Comes the Sun" again. So maybe we'll play that for you one more time at the end. But back to our webinar. So we were just talking about how whole phonics does have a very defined scope and sequence, and I'll show that to you. And yes, I know there's actually a few people who are listening who have been using the whole phonics material, and they they've seen and it's true that the stories convey a comprehensive story with a beginning, middle, and end. And I just want to stress why that's so important. We, when learning how to read, when they're reading with decodable text, this is a child's first experience with what is reading. So we want to make sure that we teach them right away that reading is something we think about. Reading is something that needs to make sense, and that idea actually is what keeps them actively engaged. So if you have a story with a story pattern that, there's a problem that's presented, there's clues to the problem. The story unfolds, the problem gets solved. So if indeed that is something that is contained in a story, in the first stories that they read, they're going to begin to expect that through every narrative story that they read later on. And kids as early as kindergarten, when I put a new book in front of them, they'll say, like, we have to find the problem of the story. So you could see that relying on story structure actually keeps them engaged and thinking. And that's actually the point of learning how to read, is that so you can think about the text. Yes, there's repetition, ample repetition and practice. And why is that? In the beginning, they need to see the word again, they need to sound it out multiple times, and that links directly to the growth of the orthographic mapping, which we used to call visual memory way back when. And it's orthographic mapping is a much more descriptive term for what's actually happening with the mapping of sounds into words in our memory. And yes, there's a focus on vocabulary development, like you saw in the story earlier that Nancy had shown us with the kids with the wigs. It said it's a hit. So that's actually an opportunity to talk about multiple meaning. And yes, indeed, there's a gradual introduction of high frequency words because typically those need to be memorized. So we don't want to overload their memory. So those words get introduced in a very thoughtful manner. Now, to this point, here is the whole phonics scope and sequence. And some of you may have an old scope and sequence, and we did change it. We moved the silent magic E up a level, and that really came from teacher response, like the teachers asked for that. In my teaching, I've usually done the R control first, but enough teachers said, hey, we need the long vowels, that we made the change. Whatever you do, and back to Nancy's point, you need to be consistent as a school. I've been teaching reading for decades. The R controls coming first were no problem. But as a school, you have to make a decision. What's your scope and sequence, whatever you choose, and stick with it across the beginning years, K1, 2. By 2, hopefully everybody's reading on grade level and they've learned their phonetic skills and they're ready to rock and roll through reading. But you'll see the short vowels come first, and there's a reason for that. So many words contain syllables or one syllable words with those short vowels. Okay, now this is actually important. In the beginning of every book, you will see the sounds that are needed, the sight words or high frequency words that are required. There's a summary for teachers on the go that you can use that to entice your students into, hey, Zach wants a pal and he meets a fat cat and he tries to earn his friendship. Let's see if he gets a pal. Build up that moment of, ooh, let's find out. Like, there's a problem, let's read and find out. We've got the special vocabulary. Fan has multiple meanings, so that will get taught. And then these reading comprehension questions, which go from more literal to higher level thinking, what can you do to be a good friend? That evokes a lot of conversation. And here too, an important aspect of becoming a really solid beginning reader is being immersed in language. And so that this is a wonderful opportunity to really bring a lot of oral language discussion into the reading lesson. And you'll see, just as Nancy had described early on, there is a commitment to the scope and sequence. They are not going to be given words that they haven't either been taught in terms of code to text or in terms of high frequency words. And there's a reason for that. And it's that, learning how to read is a little intimidating. It's probably one of the first big adult things that a little 4 or 5-year-old is learning how to do. And those moments should be empowering and exciting and not frustrating. So if you've clearly taught the lesson so that they know how to apply the sounds, then they start to feel like, hey, I can do this. And that's a very important reason why decodable text really needs to be connected to the scope and sequence presented, so that children feel a sense of accomplishment and success when they're first learning how to read. And yes, as the series goes on, and this is actually really important, there is a repetition of everything that's been taught. So you see the short A, you see a short I, you see the short E. That's obviously the emphasis in this series, because you see all those short E words. This is in this book, this is the end of level 1. You see a short O. So there's that repetition, because if they've learned it, we can't assume like, oh, I taught this, now they have it. No, we have to repeat this over and over again until reading becomes an automatic event for children. And you'll also see in these pages that, yes, we are growing the text. And one reason we're growing the text is because we know what's coming. The other reason is they can read so much more. So we want them practicing all of these skills, which requires that the text becomes more complex and longer. Now, here's what's fun about the partnership with ReadWorks and Whole Phonics. The first book in each of the short vowels is now free, sitting on ReadWorks website. You can go and you can click on each of those books, and they're there for you and your students to read together. So that's the Whole Phonics contribution, that these books are now part of the ReadWorks canon. So as far as the simple view of reading, our decodable piece is there, free, ready for you to use, and we're really excited about it. And now Suzanne will show us how the ReadWorks piece pairs with the Whole Phonics piece. Thank you, Suzanne.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. So yes, we're going to use the same table that Jill just went through with the left column, adding in here the right column. And so what we have done with the ReadWorks resources is a scope and sequence of background knowledge to the topic of the decodables. And so they are building background knowledge on the topics that they're reading about as they practice the code. We have multiple passages. In fact, we have a text set for every book. And then we focus on vocabulary development. ReadWorks has rich vocabulary supports within each of the passages. And so let's see now how this works. And so what I do want to emphasize again, which we've said all along, is that this is a supplemental resource. And so we're going to see how you notice here it says practice short A. And the reason for that is students have learned short A in their phonics instruction, and now they move to the free decodable of Zach's Pal and the free text set around cats, because as you can see, Zach is a cat. Okay, so let's dig in a little more. So here is the 5-day plan, and this is all available for free. We on the same web link that we will be giving you and that you can take away. So you don't have to memorize any of this. But what you will see is a 5-day plan, which allows for flexibility. The blue lines are the background knowledge building lines or rows on this chart. Then you will see that rows 3 through 9 are that really important phonics instruction piece that happens. And then 10, 11, and 12 bringing in the decodable. So let's see the first week in detail, how one of these weeks would work. Okay, so we're here at the article. Yes, you can move, move forward. We're here at the article for the first day. And so the students begin by listening. Notice the audio on there. They can listen. You can do read aloud. They can listen themselves to an article about cats. And then when they're done, they move into a knowledge building routine that comes from Nancy and Margie's work. And so we have knowledge trees. It's a great visual, a great graphic organizer. And so we start with a tree around cats, and then we discuss the text. What have we learned about cats? And we start to group that knowledge on branches. And so you can see here, this text was about humans and animals together, taking care of cats. And so we fill in one branch of our cat tree. And then we move to the decodable for the first day. And this is where we're down on line 10 on this left hand, where they are previewing the book, discovering the cover, talking about, notice there's a cat right on the cover. So they're starting to make that connection between the knowledge they're building into this decodable that they will begin reading on the first day. And now we go to the second day. Here is now their second article, again, about cats. Now we're moving into cats' feelings. I do want to point out the blue words here on the ReadWorks site are the vocabulary support. Students can click on those and get an interactive widget with human voice audio and images to support their vocabulary learning. Okay, so then we move to building more knowledge. We're now building that second branch of the tree around cats' behavior and feelings. They're starting to piece together a broader knowledge. Remember that text set, building knowledge day by day and deepening their understanding. And then we move back to the decodable, where now you'll see that they are talking about predictions they had from the first day. They're finishing the book and starting to think about practicing more of the words with more resources that Jill's Whole Phonics program offers. Okay, so we'll move through this quickly. You have the rhythm. Now on the third day, they have an article, this one that's about mother cats and their kittens. They then build that third branch of the tree, continuing to deepen their knowledge. And thank you again to Margie and Nancy for that great knowledge tree activity. And then they've reached now to the end of book activity. And so they've worked through day 3. And now I'm going to be turning this back over to talk about how they're bringing together all of this content, knowledge they've built about real cats with this fictional cat they've read about in their decodable practice.
Thank you, Suzanne. One of the things that we wanted to make happen as part of this partnership between the two types of text is that at the end of it all, there would be a consolidation of learning. So what we have is a template that guides the students and teachers. The teacher would, in this case, be the note taker or the writer, recorder for the students. But we want to have the students review what do they know or what do they learn about the cat? What do they know about the fictional character, the cat? And then how are they the same? And as part of the resources on the website, there are also answer guides. They're not answer keys, but they're just to be guides so that teachers can pick this up and have some support. The idea, again, is that what Suzanne was saying earlier is that if I'm learning about a real cat, how might that help me appreciate more the story and the behaviors and the pattern of what's going on with the cat in the story? Then there's another feature that is a regular on the ReadWorks website that we liked so much, which is called Step Reads. And in the regular Step Reads at ReadWorks, what that is, and you'll see it marked as a step read when you go to the website, is it's a version of the article that has been written with a lower or an easier readability rating. So we like this idea of a step read, but in the case of the decodables, what we've done is to tweak that idea a little bit. And these are the first two paragraphs from the first article that Suzanne showed you about cats. And what we did was to revise or rewrite using a higher number or higher percentage of words that have the short vowels in them. So if you were to go through, as I'm pointing out, we see more words with short vowels that are conveying the same content as was in the first article. There are a couple reasons we did this. One is that we wanted to provide basically a step between the completely decodable text and completely authentic text. For those students who are possibly beginning to understand and make some leaps in their ability to do the decoding using the code, and then partnering that with something Suzanne said, which is as the students are gaining this knowledge and are more familiar with the content, some of that will help them read the words because they're bringing to the text some of that background knowledge, which we know also is helpful to building strong readers. So we have come to our last screen, and Suzanne, do you want to describe what's available because you know it so well?
Yes, absolutely. And so this link is where you will find all of these resources. And if you just look at the picture right here, what you will see is that same setup for all of the short vowels. And so for each short vowel, there is a free text, then there is a free text set to support the background knowledge building. There's also the knowledge tree activity as well as the end of book activity for, as I said, for each vowel. You will also see that there are text sets for the other whole phonics books in each level. And so if you wish to use the entire set of whole phonics books, you can continue this concurrent approach with a text set around each of them. We also have a recorded webinar on there. If you think, how do I use this again? You can watch that webinar and see again how it all gets put together.
And I was going to add, I think I forgot to share that what we did when we aligned the whole phonics and ReadWorks scope and sequence is that in the whole phonics books, there we picked an animal, and we actually created the animal kingdom with the ReadWorks articles. So it's all about learning about animals for these 15 readers.
And the reason that that's important is one of the aspects of learning vocabulary is to begin to learn concepts, and that those concepts also help us expand the vocabulary. So throughout the animal kingdom, those branches that that Suzanne showed are always labeled behavior or habitat or I'm blanking on
description, life cycle.
Because we want our students, as they're learning to listen and try to capture the important information, is to begin to think in categories and to begin to organize that information. So by having all of the articles be part of the animal kingdom with those themes running throughout, we really hope that the students will develop that classification language of habitat description, et cetera, that will also be important vocabulary for them across other subject matters as well. So I forgot to mention, and now's probably a bad time to do it, but there is a handout which you probably received with your Zoom link. And this information about how to reach or to get to the website is there. And also I want to be sure to say if there are any questions, please reach out to Wendy at ReadWorks or Jill at Whole Phonics, and I'm sure they can answer questions. Speaking of which, if we have a couple more minutes, we could take a couple questions.
That was great. Thank you, Jill, Suzanne, and Nancy. And we do have a couple of questions. And if any of our participants have questions, feel free to drop those into the Q&A, and that would be great. So I think the first question that it looks like we have is, seeing this partnership in action, what have you seen from the Whole Phonics ReadWorks partnership, and can you share some of the highlights?
Sure. I can answer that because Nancy and I, and Nancy can add, of course, we've done some field testing, and it's actually been incredible. First of all, I do want to say that there are a number of teachers who tried this out. Obviously, it's because it's new. They tried it out during a pandemic, which I find remarkable, that given all the changes that needed to occur, there are people who are, still wanting to learn something new and bring it to their students. So we had a couple teachers in Michigan who really didn't know much about the instruction of phonics. So that was exciting for us to watch them learn how a good phonics lesson is taught. And at the same time, of course, they did the animal kingdom, and they introduced the nonfiction pieces through listening comprehension. And on both sides, there was a lot of enthusiasm. And at the end of the year, we actually got some photographs of kids, in one child's bedroom. They were allowed to take home their knowledge trees. And one child took down the posters in his bedroom and put up his knowledge trees. And you see his I'm trying to think, I think it was like a Toy Story quilt on his bed with the knowledge trees above. It's just adorable. So that's, the kids are really embracing it. And we then also visited, you want to tell about the classroom in Connecticut, Nancy? And oh my gosh, watching those children.
You're on a roll. Keep going, Jill. You're doing great.
Okay, so this was remarkable. These children in a Title I school in Connecticut that had shared with us that the children we were watching had not been very engaged during the year. And once, they started with the whole phonics readers, that was going well. And we saw the kids reading, and they were very enthusiastic. And but the part that we couldn't believe is the listening comprehension aspect, the listening to the articles. Those children were rapt with attention. I thought they would be wiggly, listening without really seeing a lot of pictures or not necessarily engaged, sometimes is hard for children. They were so excited. And I think part of it was that they knew they were going to get to put their ideas on that knowledge tree. So I think that is part of what made them super excited. So those are some of the wonderful moments that we've seen. We just started piloting really in the last 6 months of last school year. So it's been new for all of us.
Which leads to an opportunity to say that if anyone listening today is interested in putting this together for your beginning readers, trying this the materials that we're describing, we are still interested in learning what are kids learning, how are teachers finding the material, so that we can benefit from actually putting these materials into practice. Any other questions?
That actually segues perfectly into a question that we are getting about PD. And do you guys provide PD for teachers at schools? Because there's someone who would love to have their literacy teachers learn from you guys specifically about how these programs complement each other.
Well, I'll speak to the fact that that's such a refreshing question, because we've never had it before because we couldn't go to schools last year. So I think the short answer is we'd be delighted to accommodate that if we can help bring these materials to life. Absolutely. And we can also work with some of our other professional development providers in the state as well, because we know we have some friends that would help us with that. So yes, please be in touch with us.
Excellent. Well, I think that we are all out of time right now, but thank you so much to all three of you for joining us today. It was really informative, and thank you for dealing with our technical glitch so gracefully.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations to the Connecticut Reading League. It's very, very exciting what's happening.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Well, we've come to the end of our day today, and wow, what an amazingly informative and inspiring day today's been. And while, to use Jill's words, learning to read can be intimidating, I think many of us can attest to the intimidation factor of conducting a virtual conference. So thank you to everybody who rejoined us and hopped back on. A heartfelt thank you to all of our presenters, Nancy, Jill, Suzanne, for their fabulous presentation. We also want to thank Maria, Margaret, Ernie, and Emily. Today was a collaboration of so many people, so a shout out to our incredibly invested and dedicated board and people from Zaner Blozer. We hope you've enjoyed our conference and are now eager to join us in the defining movement. I want to take another moment just to remind everybody that we are dedicated, the Reading League Connecticut is dedicated to sharing knowledge and inspiring change, and the demand for our help continues to grow. So we urge you to hop on our website and become a member, which is free. We also want to remind everybody that following the conference, there will be an email sent to all attendees. You will receive a certificate of attendance, access to a recording of the conference, and a conference survey. I believe that chat has been opened at this point, and we also have added a link directly to the chat for the survey. So if you are inclined to do so, please hop on and grab that link. We urge you to complete our survey so that we, the Reading League of Connecticut, can learn how to best support everyone, our partners, our stakeholders, our students, through our programs and resources. We would also like to thank Zaner Blozer, our premier sponsor, for partnering with us today and getting us back online as quickly as possible. Thank you. And also we want to send a sincere thank you to all of our Spotlight partners, again, for helping to promote the science of reading and their generous donations for our giveaways. The Spotlight Partner giveaway winners will be selected from our list of attendees following the conference, and we will email you with your winning email and ask you for your mailing address so we can facilitate your gift. The Reading League Connecticut wants to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. We're dedicated to the continued efforts in advancing the awareness, understanding, and use of evidence-based and evidence-aligned reading instruction, and passionately believe that all children can learn to read and all teachers can learn to teach them. To access more information about our chapter and upcoming events, please go to our website. It's here on the screen. And last but not least, I just want to say how thrilled I was to see so many common threads in today's presentation. The science of reading, the reading growth, the simple view of reading, and of course, here comes the sun. And I know I am going to be very eager to find out why Frank the fish is so sad. But thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you all again at another event.